Jessica woke to the smell of wet earth and pine. Her head throbbed, her wrists burned where rough ropes had cut her skin. She blinked hard, trying to focus. She wasn't in her car anymore. She wasn't even near a road. She was lying in the middle of a forest, the ground damp and cold beneath her. Panic surged through her chest. She staggered to her feet, swaying unsteadily. Her phone, her bag, everything was gone. All that remained was the sound of the wind shifting through the trees and something else. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Purposeful. Jessica's heart slammed against her ribs. She turned in circles, scanning the dark woods. Shadows shifted between the trees, but nothing was clear. Then a voice carried through the night, deep and taunting. Run! Her breath caught in her throat. She bolted. Branches whipped her arms and face as she tore through the underbrush. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to move. Her sneakers slipped on damp leaves, sending her stumbling, but she forced herself forward. Behind her, the footsteps grew louder. A sharp metallic snap echoed to her right. She glanced over just in time to see a steel trap slam shut, its jagged teeth clanging together. Her stomach dropped. The forest was littered with traps. This wasn't random. This was planned. Jessica pushed harder, lungs burning, legs screaming. The forest suddenly broke into a small clearing, and she froze. In the middle of the clearing was a wooden stake. Impaled on it was the gutted carcass of a deer. The stink of rot clung to the air, thick and choking. Carved into its flesh was a single word. Run! Her body shook. She staggered backward, bile rising in her throat. Whoever brought her here wanted her terrified. They wanted her to know she was prey. A whistle shrieked in the distance. Another answered, closer. The hunters were talking to each other. Jessica spun and darted back into the trees. She ducked low, trying to quiet her breathing. Her eyes darted across the ground, scanning for traps. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent lightning bolts of fear through her. She crouched behind a fallen log, forcing herself to stay still. She could hear them now, 2, maybe 3 men, their boots crunching against the forest floor. A flashlight beam swept across the clearing, missing her by inches. She pressed a hand against her mouth to stifle her breathing. For a moment, silence fell. Jessica dared to hope they had moved past. And then she saw him. A tall figure stood just beyond the log, wearing a mask of cracked bone. He carried a hunting rifle slung over one shoulder. His head tilted, as if listening to her heartbeat. Slowly, deliberately, he raised a finger to his lips. Shoo! Jessica's stomach turned to ice. The hunt had only just begun. Jessica's muscles screamed as she forced herself to move again, stumbling away from the masked figure. The forest seemed endless, twisting in every direction. She didn't know where safety was, only that behind her lay death. Her grip tightened on the jagged branch she'd grabbed earlier. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was something. The hunters weren't rushing. Their whistles and footsteps echoed like predators circling prey, savoring the fear. Every sound told her the same message: you can't escape. Jessica ducked into a thicket of brush, crawling on hands and knees to keep low. Her breath rasped in her throat. She forced herself to be silent, biting down on the inside of her cheek until she tasted blood. Then, snap! A boot crushed down on twigs only feet away. Jessica froze. Through the tangle of branches, she saw him. One of the hunters, wearing a burlap sack mask with crude eye holes. He dragged a machete along the ground, the blade scraping against stones with a metallic hiss. Her pulse thundered in her ears. If she stayed, he would find her. If she ran, the others would hear. Her hand clenched the branch tighter. She didn't think. She lunged. The branch cracked across the man's masked face. He staggered back, stunned. Jessica swung again, screaming with fear and rage. The branch splintered, but she used the jagged edge to stab at his throat. He choked, dropping the machete with a heavy thud. She didn't hesitate. She snatched it up. The hunter lunged, but she slashed wildly, the blade biting deep into his arm. He howled, stumbling backward. Blood splattered across the leaves. Jessica didn't wait to see if he would recover. She ran, clutching the machete so tightly her knuckles turned white. For a fleeting second, she felt a spark of control. She had fought back. She had drawn blood. But then a whistle pierced the night, long, sharp, and furious. Another whistle answered, closer than before. Her stomach dropped. They knew. Jessica's legs carried her deeper into the forest until a strange glow caught her eye. She slowed, crouching low, and edged toward it. Through the trees, she saw firelight flickering. In a small clearing, 3 hunters stood around a roaring bonfire. Their masks, animal skulls, bone fragments, leather stitched into grotesque shapes, gleamed in the flames. They sharpened blades, checked rifles, murmured to each other in low voices. Jessica's eyes shifted and her heart clenched. Beside the fire stood 2 cages. Rusted. Crude. Inside one, a woman huddled in the shadows, her face smeared with dirt and tears. She clutched the bars, eyes wide with terror. For a moment, Jessica couldn't breathe. She wasn't the only one. The woman's lips moved silently. One word. Run. Before Jessica could retreat, her foot snapped a branch under the leaves. The hunters' heads turned as one. And this time, they didn't whistle. They smiled. The hunt was no longer a game, it was war. Jessica's heart pounded as the hunters' heads snapped toward her. Firelight glinted off their blades, and the air filled with the scrape of metal against bone masks. She didn't wait, she turned and fled into the night. Behind her, the forest erupted with sound. Boots pounded against the earth, voices shouted, whistles shrieked. They weren't hiding anymore. They were driving her deeper into the woods. Jessica's breath tore at her lungs. She clutched the machete, its weight dragging her arm down, but she refused to let go. It was the only thing keeping her alive. The trees thickened, the canopy blotting out the moonlight. Darkness swallowed her whole. The deeper she ran, the less she could see. Branches lashed her skin, roots clawed at her shoes. Still she pressed forward. Then, silence. Her footsteps slowed. She turned in circles, chest heaving, but the shouts had stopped. No more whistles. No more pounding boots. Only stillness. It was worse than the chase. Jessica crept forward, one careful step at a time, straining to hear any sound. Then her boots sank into something soft. She froze, lowering the flashlight she had stolen. The beam revealed a patch of earth slick with blood. Mangled animal carcasses lay strewn across the ground, rabbits, birds, a deer torn apart. Flies buzzed thick in the air. The stench clawed at her throat. Jessica gagged, stumbling back. That's when she noticed the shapes hanging from the trees. Bodies. Not animals. Human. Rotting corpses dangled from crude ropes, their skin pale and mottled, their eyes sunken. Some had been gutted, others nailed to the trunks. A twisted shrine of death. Jessica's stomach lurched. She staggered, pressing a hand to her mouth, while burning her throat. This wasn't just a hunt. It was ritual. A sound cut through the silence. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Right behind her. Jessica spun, flashlight beam catching a mask inches from her face, carved wood, painted with streaks of red. The hunter's hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. The machete nearly slipped from her grasp as he yanked her forward. She screamed, driving her knee into his gut. He grunted but didn't let go. The machete swung wildly, slicing across his mask, splitting it. He roared, shoving her to the ground. The flashlight rolled away, plunging her into blackness. Jessica scrambled on her hands and knees, searching for the machete. Her fingers closed around the hilt just as the hunter lunged. With a desperate cry, she swung upward. The blade slashed across his chest. He stumbled back, clutching the wound, but another set of footsteps thundered closer. Jessica ran again, blind, the forest closing around her like a coffin. Branches gave way to open air. She burst into another clearing and froze. In the moonlight stood a crumbling cabin, its roof sagging, windows shattered. It looked abandoned, forgotten. But smoke curled faintly from the chimney. Jessica's chest tightened. Was it refuge? Or another trap? Behind her, the hunters howled into the night. She had no choice. She ran for the cabin. Jessica stumbled up the rotting steps of the cabin, chest burning, legs trembling. The front door sagged on broken hinges, but she shoved it open and slipped inside, slamming it shut behind her. The wood groaned, barely holding. Inside, the air was stale and heavy, thick with dust. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the roof, casting pale beams across a clutter of broken furniture. A table lay overturned, chairs splintered. Spider webs hung like curtains. Jessica pressed her back to the wall, gripping the machete so tightly her knuckles ached. Her ears strained. Outside, the hunters' voices echoed through the woods, closer, circling. She had to think. She couldn't keep running forever. Her lungs were raw, her legs nearly done. If they trapped her here, she was finished. Unless she made the cabin her weapon. Jessica forced herself into motion, searching the room. She found rusted nails, shards of broken glass, a length of rope tangled in a corner. On a shelf, half hidden under dust, sat a rusted hammer. Her pulse steadied. She could use this. Working fast, she rigged what she could. She wedged nails into the floorboards near the doorway, points up, hidden beneath debris. She tied the rope to a beam overhead, fashioning a crude snare. She placed the broken glass under the windowsill where anyone might crawl through. Every second felt stolen. The hunters were closing in. A low whistle pierced the night, right outside. Jessica froze, crouching low, her breath caught in her throat. Shadows moved across the gaps in the wall. The door creaked. One of them stepped inside. He was massive, his frame nearly filling the doorway, his mask made of stitched leather stretched tight over his skull. A machete gleamed in his hand. Jessica held her breath as he stepped forward. His boot pressed down on the floorboard, then snapped through, driving straight onto the hidden nails. He roared, stumbling back in pain. Jessica didn't wait. She swung her machete in a wide arc. The blade tore across his arm, spraying blood against the wall. He swung back wildly, the machete grazing her shoulder, but she ducked and drove the hammer into his mask. The blow staggered him. Jessica kicked hard, sending him crashing into the window. Glass exploded, shards cutting deep into his arms and neck. He screamed, thrashing, before tumbling halfway out of the frame. Jessica yanked the rope, releasing the snare. The beam snapped loose, slamming down on his skull with a sickening crunch. He went limp, hanging halfway out the cabin, blood dripping to the floor. Her chest heaved. She had done it. She had taken one down. But then she heard it. Applause. Slow. Mocking. Jessica spun toward the open door. Another hunter stood there, mask painted white, a hunting rifle cradled in his arms. Behind him, more shadows gathered. The trap had worked, but she wasn't the only one who could set them. The hunters were done toying. Now they wanted blood. Jessica's chest heaved as the sound of mocking applause echoed through the cabin. The hunter with the white-painted mask stood in the doorway, rifle gleaming in the moonlight. Behind him, more shadows shifted, figures spreading out, tightening their circle around her. Her hands shook on the machete, but she raised it anyway. If this was the end, she would go down fighting. The man in white tilted his head, as if studying her courage. Then he spoke, his voice muffled but sharp. "You're stronger than the others." Jessica's blood ran cold. The others. What do you mean? Her voice was hoarse, cracking. He stepped forward, boots crunching on broken glass. "We've been watching you. Testing you." His rifle lowered slightly, not in mercy, but in certainty. "Some beg. Some break. You," he chuckled. "You fight." Jessica's stomach turned. This wasn't random. It was deliberate. Her eyes darted to the cages she'd seen near the bonfire. The other woman. The victims before. It all clicked. "This is a game to you," she whispered, rage burning through her fear. "No," he said calmly, almost reverently. "This is tradition. Blood for the forest. Strength for the hunters. The weak die. The worthy," he leaned close, his mask inches from her face. "Join us." Jessica recoiled, disgust twisting her insides. "I'll never be one of you." His laughter was low, chilling. "You already are. You've killed. You've survived. That's more than most. It's only a matter of time." Her grip tightened on the machete. "Then I'll kill every last one of you." The hunter straightened, tilting his head again like a predator humored by prey. "We'll see." Suddenly, a roar of firelight lit the windows. Jessica's eyes widened as she realized what they'd done. The hunters outside had set the cabin ablaze. Flames licked the walls, thick smoke pouring through the cracks. They weren't going to shoot her. They were going to burn her alive. Jessica spun, coughing, eyes stinging. Heat pressed against her skin, the air thick with smoke. She had seconds to choose. Stay and suffocate, or fight her way out through the monsters waiting. She bolted. With a scream, Jessica swung the machete, slicing across White Mask's arm. He staggered, dropping his rifle. She kicked the weapon across the floor and lunged for the door. But outside, more figures waited, masks gleaming in the firelight. Jessica's chest tightened. The flames roared behind her. Hunters closed in front. For a moment, it felt hopeless. Then she heard it. A faint cry, high, desperate. The woman in the cage. Jessica's jaw clenched. She couldn't leave her. With a surge of adrenaline, she made her choice. She ran, not away, but straight into the firelight and toward the cages. If she was going to die tonight, she wasn't dying alone. The fire raged behind Jessica, smoke curling into the night sky. Hunters circled the clearing like wolves, their masks glowing in the flicker of the flames. And at the center, the cages. The captive woman's voice broke through the chaos, "Help me!" Jessica sprinted, swinging the machete with wild fury. One hunter lunged, but she slashed deep across his leg. He collapsed with a howl, clutching at the wound. Another raised his axe, but she ducked and drove the blade into his gut, feeling it tear through flesh. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Every second counted. Reaching the cages, she dropped to her knees, yanking at the rusty lock. It wouldn't budge. Her hands trembled as she brought the machete down. Sparks flew as steel clashed against iron. Again. Again. Until at last the lock split, clattering to the dirt. The woman crawled out, eyes wide with terror and disbelief. "They'll kill us." Jessica grabbed her arm. "Not if we kill them first." A gunshot cracked the night. Dirt exploded inches from Jessica's feet. She looked up to see White Mask standing at the edge of the firelight, rifle aimed steady. "This is where it ends," he called, voice calm, certain. Jessica shoved the other woman behind her, heart hammering. She gripped the machete in both hands, raising it high. Her whole body trembled, not from fear, but from rage. White Mask fired. Jessica dove, rolling through the dirt. The bullet tore past her ear. She came up swinging, charging straight at him. He tried to reload, but she was faster. With a scream that ripped from the depths of her soul, she drove the machete into his chest. The impact knocked him back, rifle clattering from his hands. Blood spilled through the cracks of his mask. He staggered, gasping, reaching for her throat. Jessica twisted the blade and ripped it free. He collapsed to his knees, choking, before falling face-first into the dirt. Still. Silent. The clearing fell quiet. The other hunters froze, staring at their fallen leader. For the first time, Jessica saw hesitation behind their masks. She raised the blood-soaked machete, her chest heaving. "Come on," she screamed, voice raw. "You want me? Come and die." But none of them moved. One by one, they stepped back, fading into the shadows of the forest. Their whistles echoed faintly, retreating into the night. The fire crackled. The captive woman clung to Jessica's arm, sobbing. Jessica's body shook, the weight of exhaustion finally pressing down. It was over. Or so she thought. She knelt beside White Mask, trembling as she reached for his mask. Slowly, she pulled it free. Her breath caught. The face beneath was scarred, burned ice-cold and dead even in death. But what froze her blood was the symbol carved into his flesh. The same symbol she'd seen on the gutted deer. It wasn't random. It wasn't just a hunt. It was a cult. Jessica dropped the mask, backing away. The forest around her groaned with wind, carrying faint echoes of whistles and the